In my day job, I work as the program director with Kathleen at the Spring Creek Project for Ideas, Nature, and the Written Word, and we try to bring together the analytical clarity of philosophy, the wisdom of the environmental sciences, and the expressive power of the written word to help us reimagine our relationship to nature. So that's a desk job. I had a previous long career as a professional gardener, and I still garden hard. And all through all that, I've been a practicing poet. And as a gardener and a poet, and actually even as a program manager, I have had a lot of counsel from creatures I have met in the act of gardening and being outdoors. In particular, I've really benefited from the example of insects. So I wanted to share a few poems, stories about insects who have been my helpers and my teachers. It's so hard to follow Kathleen and the thoughts, that deep, deep well we went into, and to think about the challenges ahead of us. We could use some helpers. And it's often good to look in the most inconspicuous places. And insects, as you know, are really the heavy lifters on the planet. They're more biomass of insects than all the people. So they do make a difference every day, and they could continue to make more differences. So let me just share with you a few bug poems. I was going to say, since the bugs couldn't be here today, I would speak for them, but they are here. In the carpet, in our hair, probably around. So this is one of my favorite little bugs. This one's called sow bugs. And what you call them, some potato bugs, roly-polies. Are there other names? I'd be fascinated to know if there are indigenous names. Doodle bugs, pill bugs, yeah, roly-polies. Sow bugs. Vagabonds, hobos, they trundle in through a crack in the wall by the back door and congregate under the washing machine to drink soapy drain water. I'm not running a bug hotel. My home is no flop house for backyard dropouts. But these folks are easy company. They aren't evangelists reveling all night in confessional raptures, or teenage sons of bankers cranking stereos and snorting coke. They aren't revolutionaries or reactionaries, atheists, pagans, or codependents. They're just little bugs who've seen the world some and like to swap stories around my floor drain. I love to watch bumblebees in my garden. You know, the British call them humblebees, which comes from the root humus bees, soil dwellers. And humble they are, and certainly we could all use more of that. But this one, and I don't know how they came to be called bumblebees in our culture, but they are bumbling, aren't they? And there's something charming about that, I suspect useful too. So I study their bumblingness, and that's and even try to emulate it. So this is called the master. Early morning in the garden, I'm watching a bumblebee bang around in a poppy. He buzzes over to a penstemon, shoves his way down a blossom, then backs out with pollen stains on his face. Now he shambles across the rosemary like a drunkard and stumbles onto an aster, a clumsy, fat ballerina in a black tutu. It's hard to take this bumblebee seriously with his stubby wings, pudgy thorax, and geodesic eyes. When he lifts his ponderous body in flight, he's fudging several laws of aerodynamics. If this is how the plants get pollinated, it's a wonder the planet survives. Weird how evolution flirts with absurdity. My mother used to tell me, don't be half a fool. So I bow to the bumblebee, my mentor in accident and indirection, who has gotten himself stuck just now in a foxglove. Humming and shoving, he shimmies back out, waggles his butt, and buzzes away, the master, my implacable guru. Let's see here. These are about as inconspicuous of insects as you can imagine, as we don't have to imagine, but they're very fun to contemplate. River midges, all the midges, all those tiny, tiny insects. What are they doing? Now this is called, and you know, the ones that down by the river fly up and down. I actually read why they're doing that. You can too. River midges. That's what I'd do if I were one of them. Glide up and down like that in a tight column with 100 of my kin, cruising intently beside the river as if there were no tomorrow. All of us small and drab, no social climbers among us, no bosses or peons, just an unremarkable middle-class family of insects out for a late summer evening swarm. From time to time, one of the midges leaves the dance and veers away to course over the water. I've done that. Flown away and come back, sadder, maybe wiser. And now 2 midges grope in midair, a quick insemination, and I shiver in sympathy. Yes, nothing better of a summer's evening than being a midge. If anyone questions your worth, tell them, hey, I wasn't born yesterday. Indeed, I was born this very morning. Look around. Every moment is an eternity. Give no thought for the morrow, for there shall be none. So I often try to, particularly try to write about, pay attention to, and then write about insects who are overlooked or scorned. If we think that they're pests, we not only, unconsciously mistreat them, we probably don't even look at them because we don't care to see them. So even just looking it can be interesting, even if we agree that they are pests, they're agricultural pests, they're nuisances, but aren't they interesting too? And that may give us a little pause before we unconsciously swat them or try to eliminate their habitat or their creatures. This is a poem about insects that I do find it hard to love. It's called The Behavior of Flies. I've always thought they were good-for-nothing freeloaders, trash mongers, corpse defilers. Even the adults were just winged maggots to my mind. But this one on the porch rail appears to be doing exercises, push-ups, neck stretches, and wing-flexing isometrics, which makes sense when you think about it, for what is the fate of an out-of-shape fly? Its wings are like isinglass. It has bulbous eyes the color of chestnuts, and whenever I lean close, it crouches and holds still, ready to flee if I move to strike. And I am tempted to take a swat. It's a kind of itch in my chest muscles, the urge to lash out. The behavior of flies and humans. 2 more, and then it'll be time for lunch. 2 mosquitoes in the bathtub. They'd been here for weeks, living on leaky faucet drips. When I draw a bath, they fly a little, but soon settle back among the soap stains. It's December, freezing outside. That's why they don't bite me or mate. Enormous desires encoded on their chromosomes lie dormant. They dream of summer. Relaxing in the hot water, I watch them doing nothing. One, the male, waves his feathery antenna. He's smaller and has a broken foot. The female is slightly swayback, or maybe just tired. Science and Buddhism, I call them. Orphan twins in search of lost family. A couple of itinerant trapeze artists. A secretly amorous pair of saints. Well, whoever they are, they're my guests. We're sharing our morsel of eternity. We bathe together. I like to, after I have these, that's a true story. There were 2 mosquitoes in the winter in my bathtub, as they may hang out in yours, and I did enjoy watching them. And I noticed, I could tell they were different. You know, one was smaller, one clearly had a broken tarsus, and then I thought, well, I wonder if I could actually learn what species they are and why they appear different to me. And so I went to the field guide. You know, I did a little research, and that's where I learned that, you know, the males have feathery antennae, which is their noses. That's how they detect smells. You can't actually see them with your naked eye, but so you can smuggle that into a poem, and then everybody sees them. You know, so I like to go to the field guides and smuggle in some science. So I'll leave you with this last little poem to get us all perked up for getting outside and stretching our wings. This is called Cabbage Moths. Little cabbage white butterflies. Actually, they're actually butterflies. We probably call them cabbage moths because that makes them easier to kill. So we name them as a pest with a pest trait. But they're beautiful. They are difficult agricultural pests, and as a gardener trying to grow brassicas, I have taken a toll on cabbage moths, and particularly in the caterpillar stage. But there are many things to admire about them, and this is one that I particularly envy. Cabbage moths. To mate on the wing. Now that's a trick I'd like to learn. Hopped up on pheromones, legs twitching, wings flapping impossibly fast. For that, I'd take a spin as an insignificant lepidopterid. For that, I'd give up all my nature programs, rock music, erotic poetry. I'd even do penance in the egg. I'd crawl through adolescence on my belly, eating none of the food I love, eating nothing but cabbage, cabbage, cabbage. For that instant of sudden weightlessness, fluttering with my beloved on the verge of a holy convulsion, I await my turn. Thanks. I did think that some of these poems, since they're so explicit to the place, might actually end up being data points in someone's research someday. When we do the Writer's Residency Program at the Andrews, we always start by reading a poem by a Chinese poet that's 1,000 years old and invokes pine trees in a particular location. And we think how durable poetry is and what a lasting record. I can't imagine. Well, who knows whether these will last or not. This is called The Wind in the Trees. If a future archaeologist read this, he would say, those are strange trees to have native to Corvallis, Oregon, and so they would think human signal. I think mind is immanent in nature, not the exclusive property of humans. So this is a kind of a dialogue or a intermingling of consciousness between myself and the neighborhood trees. It's called the wind in the trees. The old trees along the street are reveling in the afternoon breeze. A trio of black walnuts, some tall cottonwoods, the lone Siberian elm. The fluttering of their leaves makes a purring sound like a stream pouring over gravel. The leaves rustle and gleam like moving water. I could watch them forever. Though in fact, my attention wanders. Sitting here in the shade, unbidden images flit through my mind. My father, standing beneath a willow, fishing for bluegill in Tennessee. My mother in a little sailboat at Lake Minnetonka, waving to me on the shore. The rustling leaves and restless images intermingle. What if my thoughts aren't merely mine? What if consciousness wafts through the leaves and the folds of the mind? The trees seem to be doing the moving. The images seem to play behind the eyes, but it's really the wind or something within the wind that's causing all the stir. Michael Pawlowski was talking yesterday about the energy that comes from snowberry bushes, and I have definitely felt that, how calming it is to walk into a forest where snowberry is a predominant undergrowth. I'd never realized that before. There's a particular, don't we feel differently in different kinds of woods, don't we? And this is a particular place down by the river that I walk frequently that in the winter has a very deep sadness to it. And it's not a sad sadness, it's just sad. You know, it feels, I would say, it feels right to feel sad there. It's called the House of February. On the far side of the river, there's a grove of old cottonwoods, ragged trees with storm-splintered crowns. Some have toppled into one another's arms, and all are bare now in early February. Here and there in the crotches of the branches, the canopy is clotted with big, messy baskets, nests of the great blue herons. When the trees begin budding in another month, the birds will return, carrying sticks as long as their beaks. They'll line the nests with feathers and moss, lay clutches of eggs, and hatch their naked, ungainly chicks. But today, I don't want to think about eggs or hopes or starting over. I just want to savor the desolation of those trees, the slate sky, the empty nests. And now for just a switch from trees to birds. Same place, same location, down by the Willamette. An encounter one day with a crow. That's what it's called, crow. Still thinking about that crow I saw flying over the park this morning. He kept stalling in mid-flight and falling a couple of feet before he would flap his wings and fly again. And he was crying out over and over in a wretched, faltering voice. You know those crow calls? The grouchy command? the simpering whine, the gargle, the shout. Well, this was different, full of heartbreak or woe. If he were my friend, I'd be worried about him. All right. Now, this is a little different. This is actually in the voice of a bird. It's a little risky. It's terribly risky to think that we can speak in the persona of an animal, but I thought I heard this bird speaking to me. It's called turkey vulture talking. It's probably true I think too much, sitting all night in my dead tree. But I'm a changed bird come sunrise. Mr. Transformer, Mr. Capability. So maybe I can't fly worth a hoot, drunk all the time on old meat. I'm honest, reliable. I'll get to the job if I have to walk. Whoa, just a wobbly old buzzard, not good for much, cogitating, regurgitating, ferrying souls across that final river, getting sadder and uglier. Is it worth it? Well, look at me. I've still got my appetite. Could you hear? I thought that's what he said. I'm gonna just finish with one final bird poem about the longing for adventure and to see the world, and counterposed to the deep desire to be at home. It's called Wild Geese. I'm picking beans when the geese fly over. Blue Lake pole beans, I figure to blanch and freeze. Maybe pickle some dilly beans. And there will be more beans to give to the neighbors, forcibly if necessary. The geese come over so low, I can hear their wings creak, can see their tail feathers making fine adjustments. They slipstream along so gracefully, riding each other's wind, surfing the sky. Maybe after the harvest, I'll head south. Somebody told me Puerto Vallarta is nice. I'd be happy with a cheap room, rice and beans at every meal, lay on the beach, swim a little. Who are you kidding, Charles? You don't like to leave home in the winter. Spring, fall, or summer either. It's true. But I do love to watch those wild geese fly over, feel these impertinent desires glide through my breast, and then get back to work. Thanks.